What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie, the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host. The good chef is not here. He is out trudging through the snow, doing postal service work, whatever you want to call it, having to deal with some really crappy stuff there and probably not feeling super well. So send chef some good vibes. Like go tweet at him.
Mention him.
Go tweet at him, mention him, do whatever you want. Send some good vibes to Chef because our boy's going through it in peak season for the post office. But I am joined by my co-host, Fireball Matt Marchesini, tonight, who joins me from somewhere in Iowa.
Everyone's favorite state, right?
Everyone's favorite state.
The corn. Children of the corn, right?
No, Corn-born. I do not envy you for that. But before we get into the episode, we do have to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Auntie May's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville. If you're going to the K-State, who are we even playing this weekend? I forgot who we're even playing in men's basketball this weekend.
Louisiana Monroe?
Is it Louisiana Monroe? We are a very prepared podcast tonight. All right,
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Great faces, great places, South Dakota. Yeah, if you're going to the K-State South Dakota game at Bramlage Coliseum this weekend, stop by Auntie May's, pick up the Wildcat Country Let's Ride koozies. We have plenty of them available for you there at the bar. If you go to auntiemays.com, you can check out a full list of their upcoming events. Looks like they've revamped the website. So last time we were on, I think we were having some web issues, or at least 2 weeks ago. We have a cocktail of the week now. Cocktail of the week is
What is it?
It's Bee's Kiss. Not the Bee's Knees, the Bee's Kiss.
Honey something.
It's 2 Hamilton rums, honey, and heavy cream. That'll run you $9. That'll run you $9. $9 down at the parlor. So check out their cocktail menu, their signature cocktail of the week. We also have events. Grandpa Snazzy is playing at Auntie May's. That was last week. So the events are no longer valid. Actually, just kidding. Just kidding. This is the worst ad read of all time. Jeff, I'm so sorry. Trivia Smackdowns tonight as we're recording this Wednesday, December 17th. That happens frequently there at Auntie May's. Folk and Rock Revival Night, is featuring Jefferson Fonesteel and Tony Ledesich. That is happening on Saturday, December 20th. So maybe do a little double whammy. Go see the South Dakota game. Go see Folk and Rock Revival Night at Auntie May's. And then long awaited Pie and Cocktails with Therapy will be Tuesday, January 13th.
Therapy. No
Therapy.
free ads.
Therapy. No free ads.
Can we go back to Trivia Smackdown? I just want to make a quick note because Chef's not on and he can't defend himself, so it's a perfect opportunity. I'd like to mention a highlighted comment by somebody very important at Debbie Marchesini. Chef, don't go head-to-head with Matt on trivia. He'll clean your clock. Correct. I will.
10 out of 10. No notes.
Yeah. That is a 10 out of 10 comment. Chef, not here.
Shout out to Debbie. She's the best.
Debbie.
Shout out to Debbie. Tonight, what are we gonna cover? We've got things to cover. Football side, staff updates, reactions to that, portal entries. And we also just kind of want to take a quick peek at the Texas A&M and Miami matchup for the college football playoff this week, because it kind of has some implications for K-State as far as, will we have our staff sooner rather than later? Who from that staff should we be keeping our eyes on as far as play calling, the defense, things like that, potentially. Men's basketball, we've got a Creighton win to cover off on. I went to Omaha this past weekend, so I'll share a little bit about my experience there, how this maybe changes things or doesn't change anything at all for the men's basketball season this year. And then bowl pick'ems, we will highlight 3 matchups on each of our ends. We've done our pick'ems. We've all, except for Chef, picked every single bowl matchup that's coming. So we won't go through every single one. We're going to keep this a relatively short pod for tonight. But we'll have 3 matchups and an honorable mention, perhaps maybe a sicko game that you're looking out for. To get into the football side, Matt, looking at the staff and some of the announcements that have been made that are official. I think the biggest ones that stick out here are Trey Scott, Buddy Wyatt, and Stanton Weber coming in. Stanton Weber has been talked about in K-State circles for what? I mean, he's been involved with K-State since he was born, with his dad being the color commentary guy for K-State sports on the radio. Shout out to Stan Weber. He played special teams at K-State. His brother played special teams at K-State. He coached special teams at K-State. So we've been aware of Stan Weber for a long time. He went off and did his own thing for a couple of years at South Carolina as an analyst, and then joined the Toledo Rockets for a couple of years under Coach Candle's staff in Toledo, but had elevated Toledo to be one of, if not the best G5 units when it comes to special teams, starting field position, all of those stats that matter when it comes to special teams. So Trey Scott comes in as GM, experience with the Oakland Raiders, experience as an agent as well. So he's got kind of seen both sides of the aisle. Every podcast that covers K-State's already talked about him, so we don't have to talk about it too much. And then the last one is the retaining of Buddy Wyatt on staff. So those are kind of the 3 big headliners. There are other guys that have been chatted about publicly. We can mention Jordan Peterson as potential defensive coordinator from Texas A&M, currently the co-defensive coordinator, former defensive position coach at the University of Kansas. So he has some familiarity with the region and has coached up guys like Kobe Bryant. And you look at Christian Ellsworth, who has experience being the quarterback for Coach Klein, also following around at a lot of different places, came to K-State, was here for a little bit, coached, has coached tight ends, quarterback. So he's seen a lot of different phases of the offensive game. So when you look at the announcements that have been made, when you look at the guys who have more or less been confirmed by the outside media, what are your thoughts on the staff so far, and what would you like to see as far as the staff composition as it goes forward? Any other guys that you would want to retain from the existing staff that haven't been announced, because those have been announced as well?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like today Brian LePack does look like he is going to be returning and moving back to tight end coach, which I am excited about. I think he's a guy that, especially with his experience working with Colin Klein, was really instrumental in being kind of the eyes of the field with Colin, especially during the 2022 season. So I'm excited that he is potentially it sounds not just potentially, but that he is going to be coming back. But some of the names that you've mentioned, obviously Buddy Wyatt, I think has done a really good job in his tenure at K-State as a defensive line coach, and do feel like he brings a really veteran kind of aspect to this coaching staff that I think is going to surprise a lot of people from an age perspective. This is going to be a younger coaching staff than we've seen in the past. And so I think Buddy Wyatt really does bring that kind of veteran presence. That'll be very important. It'll be very interesting to see on the offensive side if you kind of see somebody kind of in that realm, maybe not necessarily associated to K-State, but somebody who may be a little bit more of a veteran in the game that maybe will join the staff. I'm just kind of stating I don't have any inside information, obviously, with that. But I will mention a couple specific people that obviously have not been confirmed yet, most likely because Texas A&M is in the college football playoff preparing for the game against Miami. But Christian Ellsworth and Jordan Peterson, I imagine, when A&M, if they lose this weekend or, whenever potentially they lose in the college football playoff, that's going to be kind of a good indicator of when we would expect to hear about those two. But again, you mentioned Christian Ellsworth's experience working with Colin Klein and being associated with Klein. It seemed like he was going to be kind of a natural fit and asked to join the staff if Klein got the role of head coach at K-State. So it'll be very exciting to see kind of how he works with this team, especially because, thinking about other guys that maybe, might be coming back, or some names that we've heard in the past, like Josh Buford, potentially as an offensive analyst. He's somebody who's been associated with the program in the past. And then Sean McGuire, who obviously was with the team this past year, that's projected to be coming back. So, the staff is very interesting. Again, I kind of mentioned, this is going to be a little bit of a younger staff than, what we've obviously seen in the past. And you're going to have some growing pains with that, I would imagine. You're not expecting, that these guys are going to come in and, they don't have all necessarily the experience in the world potentially, and maybe their individual roles. But I am excited because I think Colin, is kind of understanding there's a good mix between, maybe keeping some K-State blood in there with some coaches that have been with the program with Chris Kleiman, but bringing in really kind of a new freshness too, of being at A&M and, being with a successful program in the SEC. I think it's important to kind of understand, that aspect of it too. So I think a lot of people are antsy, obviously, with, not necessarily getting a lot of confirmations, that you would expect. But again, you have to remember Colin Klein is also in another role right now, not necessarily 100%, focused on K-State because A&M plays on Saturday, I believe Saturday night, right? So I do imagine, depending on the outcome of that game on Saturday night, that we hear a little bit more. But I do like the staff that, he's kind of composed so far, and very interested to see where, some of these holes, including offensive coordinator. I think everybody's kind of, wondering what's going to happen with that. So it'd be very interesting to see probably the next couple weeks, really how this coaching staff hopefully kind of comes to fruition.
The game between Miami and A&M is happening at 11 o'clock Central on Saturday. So we'll know
11 in the morning. That's an 11 a.m. game. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll know early on what the impact will be for K-State long term, I guess, or at least will this be belabored for another week or not? Looking at the transfer portal, do you want to chat about that real quick? There have been it was kind of a quiet trickle to start out. Obviously, we had heard Dylan Edwards super early on, but after that, it was quiet until the season ended. Kleiman announces his retirement, and we saw a couple of names enter, but it really wasn't anybody that I was losing sleep over. Obviously, JB Price is talented, Amarian Fortenberry, talented guys that I think were showing bright futures. Quay Moss as well, but then you see a couple wide receivers enter. You've got Jaquise Bradley Demps was kind of the first bigger name, I would say, just because he was a highly recruited guy. Jace Brown enters the portal yesterday and caused a meltdown, I would say, for a lot of K-State Twitter. And then Donovan McIntosh and Ryan Davis entered today. Those are the most recent announcements. Colby McAllister also announced yesterday. So those are some of the bigger names that have entered the portal here in the last 2 to 3 days. I guess just to get into Jace Brown, kind of the elephant in the room, we've even said it on this pod. I think last week we were talking, okay, you look at a Colin Klein offense, you look at the schedule next year. If you've got a healthy Jace Brown and all these guys, you could be looking at a pretty simple walk to Arlington, potentially. Obviously, depending on a lot of things in the Big 12, as we know, fluctuates year in and year out, and teams that are often towards the bottom of the conference rise to the middle or the top. That's just happened every single year. Teams that are projected to be at the bottom end up doing better than expected. But who are you most concerned about the fact that we weren't able to keep on board? Is it Jace, or did you see the writing on the wall with that? Are you more worried that a guy like Donovan McIntosh or Ryan Davis, who have shown flashes and shown promise, but have also made some boneheaded plays this past season, who are you most just kind of disappointed in leaving? And thinking more broadly, who do you think we need to retain the most with some of these departures that have already happened?
Well, ultimately, I think it's Jace Brown. I mean, he's been. I mean, you could argue maybe that he's been the best wide receiver we've had the past 2 years. I don't know if there's much of an argument there. I think he's been the most dynamic playmaker that we've had, and he's a loss. I mean, he's a guy that is going to go. Maybe who knows? I don't know where potentially he may be looking, but he's a guy that is a standout wide receiver. He's a guy that has shown the talent level and has really put it out there in a lot of the games. And quite frankly, he's a huge loss for this offense compared to, I'm not downplaying any of the other transfers. I mean, guys that you mentioned, they showed some flashes in games this season. But ultimately they felt it was, this is the right time with a new coaching staff to potentially explore options and move in another direction. I'll be interested to see where Jace goes. I mean, I really will. I feel like he's a guy who may go into the SEC and, Florida or, Florida, ACC, Florida State, a school like that, I'll just be very interested to see kind of where he ends up. But I think from a retention perspective, I believe I've kind of I feel like I understand this process for myself and maybe others don't, but it's quite frankly, there's going to be a ton of turnover on this team. And there are going to be guys who individuals fans that are going to leave. And I understand the process. I can be disappointed, but I understand the process. But fans need to understand there's a high likelihood that players that we enjoy watching play football are not going to be in a K-State uniform next year. One of those, Avery Johnson, I think is the one that a lot of fans are really on and antsy about because, I don't think necessarily Jace Brown is a kicker, but I have to think it's in the back of his mind. With Jace going, is being a part of this program where I want to be, I need to be, and going from there. So I think for a good portion of our fan base, we're really kind of waiting to see, is there a confirmation that Avery's staying or if he's going to enter the portal. But in general, I mean, this is just going to be a way different team next year. And that's why you bring up the schedule for next year and you look and you're like, oh man, you have these schools that have lost their coach and, rebuilding this and that. We're one of those schools. Other fan bases are looking at their schedule and they see K-State and they're thinking the exact same thing. This is a team that could, I don't necessarily have high expectations for in year one, but I also don't know necessarily who's going to be here yet. But it's quite possible that, hey, you lose Avery Johnson and then you lose this and that and the other thing, and you're surely rebuilding. And we go 6-6 again next year. And that's okay because, this is it's going to be a different team. And we have players who have this uncertainty about who their coaching staff's going to be, who's going to be my defensive coordinator, who's going to be my offensive coordinator, all this stuff. So the portal this is how college football is. And, for people everyone has the rightful opinion to be disappointed that Jace Brown is leaving the program. And I am as well, because I think he would have been a really good piece for next season that, as a number one wide receiver for Avery and senior seasons and this and that, it would have been a really interesting kind of situation to see. But then I also look at it from Jace Brown's perspective. It's hey, I've had 2 different offensive coordinators already. I'm on number 3. I'm not going to have the wide receiver coach that I've been working with. It really the program's going to be different for me. So this is a good opportunity to shop around and find a place to play, that fits what I may be looking for my last year. So, it's it's obviously an interesting time. I think, I don't want to speak for fans. I'm speaking for myself. I've taken this as an opportunity to really really level set on what my expectations are for K-State next year. I understand that this team is going to look a lot different. We don't know what the transfer portal is going to hold for us. And we don't know what the coaching staff is going to look like. So you just have to kind of go through and wait our turn a little bit. And, until we really see kind of a final, or at least close to a final program where we know guys that are staying versus leaving, that gives you kind of the ability to really, make a determination as to how maybe we truly feel.
Yeah, it's also different. I feel like when we look back at the portal era in the last few years, having the extended window, having the multiple windows, it makes this whole portal experience very different than it is right now. I mean, in the past, we had portal was open. You could enter, people were doing visits. I think I saw on Time Hop, Adrian Martinez committed 3 years ago to the day or 4 years ago to the day. So it's very different now. Like the portal won't technically open until January 2nd. And so we're not going to be able to have excitement about a commitment until 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, when we start to see some of those commitments come in. I'm also curious. I mean, since players aren't allowed to enter the portal, technically they can declare their intent to enter the portal. I mean, I guess technically if they're chatting or if an agent is chatting, back channeling with a school and they commit on January 2nd, I mean, I guess technically everybody's tampering and being tampered with as well. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how many, if any, commitments will K-State have on January 2nd or January 3rd, because what that would mean to me is that Klein and his recruiting staff are willing to go outside the bounds of what is considered legal, so to speak. And I think he mentioned, or we've talked about, in his introductory press conference, he kind of talked about wanting to toe the line a little bit on some of the edges of things that we need to do in order to be competitive in the current landscape. And whether that's with revenue sharing and some of the true NIL that exists outside of revenue sharing, or if that's with the recruiting process and going outside the bounds of, well, I guess technically it's not illegal. The guy's already declared his intent to enter the portal. He has an agent, and the agent's the one doing the talking. I'm curious to see how this all pans out compared to other schools, because Lord knows we're probably going to see a flurry of commitments from the Oregons or the Texases or the A&Ms of the world, who are very clearly doing a lot of this stuff out in the open. So that I think that part of it's going to be interesting to me to see how that plays out. But yeah, curious to see how the rest of the staff develops. Speaking of the rest of the staff, obviously some of those names that we mentioned with Christian Ellsworth and Jordan Peterson are guys that are part of this current A&M staff. They're playing that game against Miami, I guess. What are some of the things that you're going to be looking for in that game? Is it going to be laser focused on the scheme and seeing what Klein is dialing up in the matchup? Is it going to be more of a focus on some of the defense? Because I feel like the A&M defense is more intriguing to me now, given that if Jordan Peterson's going to be taking on this DC role, I'm not as familiar with him. I'm not sure where his specialty area has been, if it's been defensive backs or what. But I am curious to see just how the defense takes out, because I've watched one A&M game all season, to be honest with the audience here, and you can probably guess which one it is if you know who I am and who I'm married to. But that's the only A&M game I've seen this season. So I'm curious to see how this game goes on Saturday, but curious what some of the things are that you're going to be looking for in that matchup specifically.
Well, I think from a K-State perspective, like we're in between a rock and a hard place, because I think we would really like to see A&M lose, so that you can kind of start building your staff and like really like starting to put, early kind of stages on your program. But I'm also intrigued because I think A&M is a really good matchup for Miami, to where they could win and you then go to the Cotton Bowl, and where I think that there's a good potential that you're going to, you're not going to be favored in that game, but you're going to be, I mean, you're going to have probably a really good crowd advantage in that game against Ohio State. I think it's Ohio State who,
I'll triple check that.
I'm pretty sure.
Ohio State. Yeah, it's Ohio State.
And, you know, that kind of turns it into a very intriguing like matchup of, you know, two teams that, you know, it would be very interesting. But, you know, I've watched more than one A&M game this year. You know, the Notre Dame game, I think, was like obviously like an early on game that was a really good litmus test to kind of see how good A&M was, because you're on the road at A&M. But even like the LSU game this year, where the offense, you know, just kind of came back in the second quarter or the second half and like, you know, really did some really good things. You know, at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do, right? You know, all we're going to do is just watch and kind of see. And I think I don't want to say we, I think from my perspective, like I am cool with seeing A&M move forward in the playoff, because it does, in my opinion, it brings Colin in and it gives the coaching staff, you know, that potentially could be coming and joining like these, you know, a really good opportunity to showcase themselves. You know, if A&M wins 45-41, a lot of people are going to talk about how A&M offense scored 45 points, you know, in this game against a Miami defense that through the year has been pretty solid. Like it's been a pretty good defense. But then, yeah, you know, A&M gives up 41 points and you're like, oh my God, you know, so I think, you know, for my perspective, like I hope that A&M kind of, you know, has, you know, maybe they win the first game, lose the second, you know, something like that, where that happens. But, you know, if A&M loses, then yeah, you know, it gives Colin, you know, he will probably be on the jet over the next day and he'll be doing, you know, getting that staff finalized and whatnot. But again, this is just how college football is now. You know, if you're in a position where you are hiring a coach from a sitting playoff team, you are going to be in this position. And you see, you know, other schools are going to be kind of in that same boat. So it's one of those deals where, you know, I'm going to watch the game because obviously it's, you know, a college football playoff game. Very exciting. You know, someday maybe we'll be able to be doing the same thing. But I think just from my perspective, I think we want to see our coaching staffs continue to have success. You know, it does bring a positive energy towards the program, you know, when they do finally join us. And, you know, it provides more experience. You know, it provides more experience playing teams in other conferences, playing, you know, the potential to play Ohio State in a Cotton Bowl would be, you know, very exciting to kind of see some of that.
Yeah, I'll be watching. I think we all will. It's the first time we've really had any true stake in a college football playoff game, just from a coaching perspective. And you bring up a great point too. It's not really a position we've been in where we've had to deal with this before. We've never hired away a head coach from a sitting Power 5, Power 4 program where they were coaching in a playoff or coaching for a national championship and that being on the line. I mean, technically Kleiman was, but that's the FCS. That ends far sooner in the year than the CFP goes. The CFP goes till January 19th, so we better hope that A&M doesn't make it to the championship in that regard. But yeah, it's going to be a fun watch. I'm looking forward to the game. I feel weird even feeling like I have to cheer for A&M in any kind of sport, because I hate them with an immense amount of energy. But, you know, I want Klein to put up 50, 60, 70 points and the other team to maybe beat them. I don't know. But then the Jordan Peterson part, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So my brain is going to short circuit. But anything else on football? Anything else you want to chat through there?
No, I mean, the next, few weeks are really going to kind of solidify what we're, going to be seeing from a coaching staff. And, but for me, the transfer portal is one of these things that it's going to affect this program very heavily this year. If you have an expectation that Colin Klein is going to be able to hold a majority of this program together, or a majority of these players together, in my opinion, I think that's a sorely mistaken thought. And, you're going to have individual guys that you want to keep. And will you be successful in those? Hopefully, you hear, some of, Joe Jackson obviously is coming back. I saw something about Toby Osinsami that's, he's bought in and coming back. I think the big one's Avery. Are you going to be rebuilding next year with a new quarterback, potentially a portal quarterback or with Blake Barnett, or are you going to be running with Avery? In my opinion, I think it is the best move for the program to be trying to keep Avery Johnson here. And, you find these skill players around and do your best in the portal to get there. And hopefully Tibbs stays. And, obviously Lincoln Cure is, said positively, or he said some positive things about staying, so you have guys, but it's just going to be a rebuild. And, this offense is going to look different. This offense has the potential to look different. I think the defense is going to look relatively different,
yes.
In a lot of ways, whether positive or negative. But, I think just for everybody, we have to keep an open mind through a lot of this process. And you have to understand that, in the way college football is nowadays, a coaching change is going to bring on change in a lot of other ways too. And we just have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah. Defensive coaching staff in large part is gone. Tui, Clanderman's going to Baylor. You've got, Van Malone taking a head coaching position at the FCS level at an HBCU, which is awesome to see for him. But it's a lot of the guys that were integral in the day-to-day coaching, and a lot of the guys that were integral in the recruiting process for a lot of the athletes we have on the roster right now. They're going to be gone. And I think a large part of why Coach Klein would have retained a guy like Brian Lepak or Buddy Wyatt is to try to keep as much of the culture as you can, to try to keep, one of those familiar faces that recruited you diligently. Taylor Bratt's another one that's part of that mix too. I think if you're going to try to retain as much of the existing roster as you can, he's done a pretty good job of handpicking the guys that you would want to keep around from the previous staff to try to keep as much of this together as possible. So we'll see how it pans out, obviously, but I would say early phases, kudos to Coach Klein on his approach there. We'll see how it ends up panning out. Moving over to the men's basketball side and women's, I'll share that the men's and women's side, both teams swept Creighton in Omaha this past weekend. If you did the double dip, shout out to you. I know a few people that did. I had to get out of there a little bit early, so I wasn't able to make it for the women's game, but was at the men's game. My first time going to CHI Health Center as a non-Creighton fan, which was a little bit of a weird experience for me, but it was a blast. I had a lot of fun. There was a good amount of purple in the arena. K-State gets the win 83-76. It was a lot more fun in the first half, though, than the second half. K-State had multiple times pulling out to like a 20-point lead and looked like they were dominating, to the point where when we left after halftime to go get some drinks and meet up with some people that we knew there, we stayed a little bit longer because we felt like the game was out of hand at that point. But surely enough, Jerome Tang teams never disappoint, always have to make things interesting when they don't intend to or shouldn't be. But Abdi Bashir lights out, shooting it from three in the first half. As we are all on the record of saying so far this season, he should not be shooting it from 20 feet or less at this point. I think he's only made like 2 of those shots the entire season, which is insane to think about. David Castillo was an absolute stud on Saturday, coming off the bench, I think playing 23 minutes. He was just, as someone who was there and cheering on the team and being pretty vocal, David Castillo was the guy that was the most exciting guy on the court, and it wasn't even really close for me. He's a high energy guy. You can tell that the team plays differently when he's on the court than they do when he's off the court. And I understand that he's trying to take some of this leadership and try to lead from the bench, so to speak, and going out publicly and saying, look, I want to be that energy guy. And obviously the team was playing a lot better when I was coming off the bench. So Coach Tang put me back on the bench. I don't think he should be the one saying that. I don't think he should be the one making that decision for Coach Tang. I think Coach Tang should have the foresight to know that and analyze and understand his team and the chemistry and the makeup and the flow of the game better to be able to make those decisions in his own right. But it's clear that the team plays different when Castillo's on the court. I think if we can move him from being a 20 to 23 minute a game guy to being 29 minutes off the bench, he'd still be the sixth man, whatever. Like if that's the energy, the spark that you need, that you're trying to get out of him, I would say play him more. Dorian Buka, I was surprised by. He had some flashes in the game as he's had all season. It's been funny to see some of those blocks, and he cracks me up watching him. He's funny to watch. He's fun. And yeah, I mean, the defense is still it's brutal. The defense is atrocious, especially in that second half. You can't let a team come back into it when leading for 20 plus points multiple times throughout the game. So yeah, that was my assessment, just going to the game, seeing everybody in action. My dad was heckling Matthew Driscoll, said he looked like Jerome's little elf on the sideline. So that was just a ridiculous moment from Todd Wenberg there, the father. But yeah, thoughts on the game, thoughts on the outcome, players that stood out to you. What were your thoughts on the Creighton game?
Well, I echo your sentiment with David Castillo. I mean, it was pretty evident for a majority of the Creighton game. He was the best player on the floor on both sides. I think for a lot of, negativity we can push towards Jerome Tang and kind of some of the mismanagement that we've seen from a coaching perspective and this and that. David Castillo has been really good this year, and his improvement has to, if you talk about the negativity, there has to be at least a little bit of semblance of positivity for how Jerome Tang and, his new coaching staff have gotten David Castillo to the point where we are talking about him needing to be on the floor for 30 minutes a game. He played 23 minutes in that Creighton game, and that was not enough. I mean, he was out there just really controlling, in a lot of different ways, making big plays. In a lot of ways, I like to think that the Creighton game was almost like this, coming out party for David Castillo, despite the fact that he's been really good this year, of showing, hey, this guy is somebody that needs to be on the floor to make big plays or have the potential to make big plays. I was very impressed with that. Now you look at the second half, obviously, the first half was so good that the second half was, again, kind of showing the volatility of this K-State team. A team that when they shoot the lights off, they're going to look really, really good. And we know that. I mean, this is a team that at the half had 51 points, again, about to average 100 in the game. We've seen this in multiple games through the year. And then you hit a wall in the second half, hitting shots. Creighton was, you were struggling on offense. Creighton was hitting shots. You weren't playing good defense. And you get to a point where the game is really close at the end. And then again, David Castillo comes in, makes a huge play, especially with the alley-oop to Kamari McGriff towards the end to really kind of ice the game. This is a big win for K-State. And I say that not necessarily looking at Creighton's, record, but this is a team that I look at last year, really outside of a few games on the road, did not look good. Outside of the Iowa State game last year, which seemed like an anomaly when you think about it, but this is a team that just has not been good on the road. And the Indiana game was really the first road game, and you kind of saw that where you don't shoot the ball well, you're not going to be in the game if you're not playing defense. And admittingly, like I thought we were going to kind of see a similar kind of situation, despite the fact that Creighton hasn't necessarily been very good this year. And K-State comes out and just shoots lights out. Bashir was huge in the first half. It was a team that I think really fought, even though offensively they didn't necessarily look great in the second half, and defensively they struggled a little bit. The last 4 minutes of that game, they really put it together to where they put themselves in a position to win. Does it help your NCAA tournament resume? I mean, it's a road win against maybe a probably quad 2 team, whatever. But I think it gets you in the right mindset going through into Christmas break, where you're going to be playing a couple of, not necessarily great teams, and getting yourself ready for Big 12 play. This is a basketball team that, I think a couple like the Bowling Green loss is going to really haunt this team. Just from I mean, who knows what that's going to be from a quad perspective towards the end of the year. But I think ultimately all of us know when we watch K-State basketball this year, if they're shooting the ball really well in the game, they're going to be in it. Like at the end of the day, they shoot themselves in games. It's their defense that really holds this team back. Like you have a semblance of a quality defense, we would not be talking about, this team maybe in such a negative way that most of the fan base is, but this is what the team has kind of put themselves into at this point. So it was a fun game to watch, I think, from an offensive perspective, but to win on the road against a Big East team and have specific guys really kind of show their mettle in this game outside of David Castillo. Like Kamari McGriff played the most minutes in this game, 28 minutes in this game. You mentioned Doran Buka, played, I thought in his, the minutes that he put out there, he was aggressive. He has a good defensive mindset most of the time. He can be a presence out there. Taj Manning, a guy who has been, kind of not a joke, but like people have been talking about how Taj Manning, Jerome Tang talked about Taj Manning and all of this and that. He's putting out some really good minutes out there for when he's out there. I mean, he is showing like a passion for being out there on the floor with his team and putting good minutes together. And, it just makes you, kind of wonder where this team going into Big 12 play, what this is going to look like, because you're going to start right off the bat playing a top 10 team in BYU. Is this a team that, for 9 games during Big 12 play at home, is going to shoot it really well and be in those games, but, on the road, they're going to suck? Well, this Creighton game, I think, kind of shows, hey, they won a game on the road. They fought, they had adversity in the game. They didn't, bow down to that. And they had somebody in the end who made big plays, especially with PJ Haggerty not necessarily being at the level that he was earlier on the season. So,
yeah,
not like my optimism level hasn't gone extremely high, right? Like we're going to have 2 games coming up here. The BYU game, I think, is a really good litmus test because number one, it's at home, but number 2, you're playing one of the top teams in the country. I think if we expect K-State to potentially make the NCAA tournament, these are going to be games that they are probably going to have to win to build the resume. And to start off with potentially a BYU team that could be top 10, if BYU kind of wins out in their games, could be big. But my optimism level is not there yet.
We have to rattle off a couple of big victories in Big 12. I would say in the first 5 or 6 games of Big 12 conference play, because you're going to have, if I remember right, you're going to have Arizona pretty early on, Arizona State, which I'm not going to say that Arizona State's great or anything, but they've looked better this year than they did last year or a couple of the years past. BYU and Arizona back-to-back games. January 3rd, January 7th, both on the road, BYU at home, Arizona and Arizona State on the road. So, gonna be fun.
Arizona, I think, is gonna win the national championship. I'm convinced.
They looked really good on Saturday.
They look excellent. They look really good. I am on the train at this point.
Yeah, what was that Alabama that they played and they ran him out of the gym in
Yeah.
Birmingham?
I mean,
In effectively a home game.
Jaden Bradley looks incredible as a point guard, which I thought last year he was really good and unheralded because not many people talked about him. But like that Arizona team just looks really good. Iowa State looks good. This conference, you have 4 teams in the top 10 from the Big 12, and you play BYU at home, Iowa State at home. You get Arizona on the road. You get Houston on the road. These are, I mean, it's going to be really tough, for K-State to be in these games. They're going to have to shoot it really well, and yeah, because their defense just isn't there. And so I don't know. I thought this Creighton game was a really a good opportunity to try and steal one on the road against a team that wasn't necessarily showing a lot earlier on this season, but K-State, just recent history, they've not been great on the road. So this is a really good one to get.
Yeah. Not good on the road. That goes back to last year. So yeah, we'll see if they can continue this trend of road wins, starting with the win at Creighton, who won tonight by 41 points over an 8-3 Xavier team on the road in Cincinnati. So go Jays, baby. They won by 41 tonight. So that win may end up looking better and better as they are now tied for first in the Big East. We'll see how long they hang on to that one. Getting into bowl season, bowl pick'ems. We've done our whole bowl pick'em sheet for tonight. Before we get out of here, we're just going to highlight, three games that we have our eyes on that are most intriguing to us. I went with the approach of not looking at the CFP games, so just strictly looking at the bowl games. If we want to talk CFP, we can talk CFP, but and then I have kind of just like a sleeper pick of a kind of a sicko game, or maybe even more so of a sicko situation that I'm going to be watching for as well. But how about you kick us off with your first game you're going to be watching?
Yeah. The first game ultimately it obviously includes a Big 12 team. I have to start with that. But I think the Pop-Tarts Bowl is a really intriguing game to give a good idea as to how good BYU is this year. It sounds like Georgia Tech is going to be at mostly full strength for that game. Haynes King said he's going to be, playing in the bowl game. And Georgia Tech kind of had an off and on year, but in the grand scheme of things, they were a very, very good ACC team. This was a team that was, in the running to get to the ACC championship game close towards the end of the year.
Tiebreakers. These conferences are too fucking big.
And all that stuff. So I think this game is a really good opportunity for BYU to prove, should I have been talked about more in the college football playoff selection process or not? And so I am excited for this game. I mean, obviously it's also the Pop-Tart Bowl, but I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. You're going to see, BYU obviously travels really well, but Georgia Tech, I mean, it's a relatively close travel, from Atlanta to get to Orlando for that game. So I think it's going to be a really good atmosphere for that game, especially because it does sound like a majority of the teams are going to have their roster from the season. It should be a really good battle of head coaches with Sataki and Brent Key. So I think it's an extremely intriguing game. I believe BYU's favored by 4.5. I think BYU wins by a touchdown. So I was going to take BYU in that game, but I am excited for that one.
My first one is Cal against Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl. I love the story about the kicker for Hawaii, who's from Japan, who learned how to kick watching YouTube videos, and just looking at the game itself. You've got two offenses that have been pretty prolific this season. Both quarterbacks are throwing for more than 2,800 yards on the season. Rushing yards, at least on the Cal side of things, are much higher. So they feel like kind of a well-rounded offense. Maybe Hawaii more of the run and gun type of air raid, maybe higher flying offense over there. But a Hawaii team coming off of a year last year where they were awful, they were abysmal last year, and then this year really exceeded expectations with an 8-4 record. So I'm kind of just excited to watch this game, not for any particular reason. I just think it'll be a fun matchup between two offenses that appear to be pretty good, at least on paper. Second matchup, well, let's like snake draft style. So I'll do my second matchup. My second one is Arizona and SMU. This is a weird Arizona team, and people have been saying it all year. K-State obviously loses that non-conference game to Arizona, and at the time we all just burn it down. Like, this is a horrible loss, horrible Arizona team. Brent Brennan sucks. Brent Brennan was second to last or last on our head coach power rankings before the season. And then he goes out and wins 9 games, right? 9-3, and is near the top of the Big 12 this season. So just kind of a weird season. I don't know. I haven't seen, is Noah Fafita going to be playing in that game? Has he announced if he's opting out or not?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I would imagine he probably would play in that game, but if he's playing kind of his swan song, it would be great to see him play one final college game before he exits, because I've had a lot of fun watching Noah Fafita for the last 3 years. And then SMU, I don't really have any particular like or dislike for SMU. I just think they're fine. They're an ACC team that bought their way into the ACC, and whatever. They had a good season last year, but not as good this year. Just don't really have any strong feelings towards
no feelings towards SMU.
Yeah,
that's fair. My next game is the ReliaQuist Bowl, Iowa and Vanderbilt. I am very intrigued by this matchup, number one, because you have Iowa. Is Iowa going to be a classic Iowa? But then you have the Diego Pavia experience at Vanderbilt, especially with kind of some of the media stuff after the Heisman voting. I think Vanderbilt in this game and Diego Pavia is going to have a lot to prove. And it's going to be happening against an Iowa team that historically great defenses. Like, how it's going to be like a very interesting, I think, matchup of two completely different styles. And so I just have the fact that I'm choosing like a Vanderbilt football game as an intriguing bowl matchup. But it really is. I mean, it's a matchup of two teams with different styles of play. And Vanderbilt's going to, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement from this Vanderbilt side of like trying to come through and, win a bowl game and whatnot. But it's really the Diego Pavia situation that is just very funny to me. And kind of how he does like track with a Johnny Manziel track. I was talking to somebody about this earlier, but I think about like the NFL draft and who's going to be a quarterback that I think is going to get drafted unnecessarily high, very similar in manner to Johnny Manziel. I think it's going to be Diego Pavia. I think this guy is going to go through the combine. He's going to go through everything, and he's going to be like late first, early second round quarterback. I just think that's how this is going to match up, probably to the Raiders or something. He fits there, but that's my second one. I think a really interesting game that's going to happen there.
God, he would be perfect as a Las Vegas Raider. I hate to admit, but he fits. I mean, he's from New Mexico. The dude's from New Mexico. I think that's the closest professional team to where he's from, unless you're looking at Broncos or Cowboys. It's like Broncos, Cowboys, Raiders. I guess Cardinals too. Anyway, not to belabor the point there. My last matchup I'm going to be looking at is going to be the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl between Michigan and Texas, strictly because of the Sharon Moore situation and how is Michigan going to respond to their coach having an affair with an EA in the building, getting arrested, breaking and entering, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I think it's going to be fascinating to see if they can set that aside and rally around interim head coach Biff Poggi, which is the most bizarre name I've ever heard in my life. And Texas has some notable opt-outs. Anthony Hill is opting out of that game. He's their stud star guy on defense. But yeah, Arch Manning and all the ballyhoo about him. And I think that's just going to be a good game between two good teams. But the coaching on the Michigan side is going to be interesting to watch and see how the team responds to that adversity, which is a lot of adversity off the field. Like the interim coach this week is saying the players feel betrayed. It's like, it sounds like a total shit show of a situation. So just watching that mostly from a sicko perspective. My honorable mention, my sicko game, future Pac-12 matchup between Washington State, who just lost their head coach, Jimmy Rogers, to Iowa State, and then the Utah State Aggies, the other Aggies that I'm going to be watching this bowl season. Just curious to see how two Pac-12 teams, future Pac-12 teams, match up against one another, two middling teams at that. So, yeah, not actually excited for that game. That's just my honorable mention sicko pick. You're on mute.
I like how the snake draft went. You did a really good job of doing that and not letting me do my third pick.
Oh, you did? I thought you did.
I've only picked 2 games.
I thought you did. Well, anyway.
Wow.
Pick your picks.
My third pick. This is an interesting one for me, just because I'm curious as to how USC is going to fare against TCU, who I didn't think was very good necessarily this year. I mean, obviously they're better than K-State, but we beat TCU. Does Lincoln Riley care about the Alamo Bowl to beat a TCU team that I think is probably not as good as USC? But if TCU beats USC, that really, I feel like, kind of resets the Sonny Dykes clock a little bit, because it's like, we beat USC in the Alamo Bowl, but if TCU loses, like, does it matter? Like, I don't know. Like, I think you go in, you're playing with like house money if you're a TCU fan. I'm intrigued by the game because, number one, I don't think it's an interesting game, because I don't think USC cares about being in the Alamo Bowl, and I don't think TCU cares about being in the Alamo Bowl. But for the Big 12, like, we kind of want TCU to win if we think Sonny Dykes isn't a very good head coach, because I think this kind of resets the clock a little bit with TCU. So, I mean, I think it's quite possible that USC beats TCU by like 21 points in this game, but it's also Lincoln Riley, and I think he could also not care about this game, and TCU beats USC kind of like the Cotton Bowl with Tulane. Like, USC didn't make the college football playoff, and so they had to play Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. So I don't care about this game, and obviously they didn't because they lost. It kind of has that same energy, and that's why I'm like so interested in it.
That's a good shout. I hope that the Sonny Dykes clock does reset.
I kind of do. And then my sicko game. Maybe it's not a sicko game, but I think it's very funny. If I think about these two teams and how they were supposed to be in the college football playoff this year, the Pinstripe Bowl, Penn State, Clemson. Like, to think that at the beginning of the season, Penn State was number 2 in the country, Clemson was top 10.
They're up there.
And they are playing in the Pinstripe Bowl, a bowl game in a baseball stadium. Who would have thought? And Matt Campbell is the head coach at Penn State now.
Oh my God.
That is my sicko game, because I just think it's absolutely wild that these two teams were ranked so high, expected to do, whatever, and are playing in a very meaningless game in a baseball stadium. Penn State, Clemson. Go Tigers.
Back-to-back picks with Riley brothers in them, with Lincoln and Garrett Riley. So yeah, if Garrett Riley were still at TCU, I guarantee you Lincoln Riley would be getting up for that game. But that's not the case. And Kendall Briles is gone, so that era is over at TCU. So that's gonna be a fun one to watch. All right, I mean, I think that's all. That's all I've got. Any parting words? This might be our last pod of 2025. So,
well, if it is our last pod of 2025, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to Z, my buddy Z. 2025 was an interesting year in a lot of ways for all of us if we think about K-State sports. So I think for everybody, a New Year's resolution is to pray for K-State more than we did last year. I don't know if you pray. If you don't, figure, everybody just put in a prayer for K-State. Like 2026 has to go better than 2025.
Yeah. Light a votive candle.
Yeah. It's not about NIL. It's about just a prayer.
It's a prayer. It's a hope.
Just a prayer.
It's a wanting. Yeah.
But I think we can all say we miss Chef. We wish he was here today. We hope that 2026 is better for Chef compared to December of 2025.
I mean, it's been touch and go for him from a work standpoint since about January 20th of
Postal
this year.
Service. So. Postal Service got to give our boy a big raise.
Postmaster. We'll who's the Postmaster General right now? Everybody tweet at the Postmaster General of the United States.
Yeah,
Louis DeJoy.
Oh, he's still it.
It's still him. Yeah.
I think for all our listeners, I think Bob and Chef and I, we appreciate everybody. We hope everybody has a safe holiday and a safe new year. And we will be back in 2026 to talk about whether the Cats beat BYU or not.
Yes, we will. That game is on the 3rd. Who knows when we're going to have our next pod? It's definitely going to be at some point, either before or after that game. But until then, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the things. Happy Hanukkah if you celebrate. All that good stuff. We are the K-State representative on the College Huddle. We are on social media at Cocaine Willie. You can follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef's at Chef Andre Napier. Fireball Matt's at Matt Marchesini. Chef is not here, but Matt.
Cocaine
we are
a little of a drug, baby.
Yes, we are all coke and no joke. It's been a rough day, brother. Wildcat country.
Let's
ride.